What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Final Boss Garage. If you're just tuning in for the first time, hit the subscribe button, follow along. We're building this 87 Camaro with our LS1 swap, doing a heads and cam swap right now. Now, if you saw part one of our swap, you saw that we pulled off our old heads. We went over all the valve train, lifters, push rods, everything, and how that works. On today's episode, I plan on pulling off the water pump, the harmonic balancer, pulling out the old cam, going over the oil pump and timing, and then sliding on in our new cam. So that is the plan. If you're unaware of what we're doing, check it out. Excuse the mess. We have 317 heads. We have our new cam. It is a 229, 236 cam. Nothing super crazy. This was originally meant for my daily driver. And then we got some 6-liter head gaskets, some TIC Performance push rods, and then this is a OEM oil pump, but I've already installed a Melling high volume oil pump in it, and then I have an LS2 timing chain that we'll probably throw along as well. Now, I'm going to go ahead and skip all the boring stuff with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and pull the radiator, cooling fans, and then probably the water pump. Most of you guys should know how to do that already if you're looking into how to do a cam swap. Anyways, stay tuned. Alright, so the radiator and cooling fans have already been removed. Now we're going to go ahead and remove our water pump. The water pump's held on by 6 10mm bolts. You do have 3 on each side. For the driver's side, you have to remove your top 2, and then you can get to the bottom one with a wrench. Otherwise, you would have to pull off this pulley right here. With the LS1 gaskets, most of them are reusable. These are for the water pump. I use Duralast gaskets. I don't really recommend them, but honestly, I haven't had any problems with them. With these LS1 gaskets, you really want to stick to OEM. Everything I use on the motor is OEM. I did use these Duralast water pump ones just because I was in a bind. But Amazon is honestly like the best place to get all your gaskets. Much cheaper than the dealership or Summit. Alright, so we're ready to pull off our harmonic balancer bolt. It is a 24mm socket. When pulling these off, we're not going to keep them. You do have to replace them. It is another stretch bolt just like your head bolts. So hopefully you bought a new one of those. Alright, that wasn't very hard. That came right off. You do see they are Loctited on the bottom. This is a brand new one. Basically, it's only been in there for, I don't know, maybe the 5 miles I've driven it around the block. Alright, so now we're going to pull off our harmonic balancer, and for that you do need a harmonic balancer tool. You can pick one up locally at your AutoZone and rent one for about $45, but keep in mind you're also going to have to rent the installer tool as well, unless you like to do it the old-fashioned way where you bang it on with a 2x4 and a hammer and just drilling down the balancer bolt. Alright, when renting your harmonic balancer puller, if you don't already have one, I picked this up from AutoZone. It's your classic 4-prong where you run your 3 bolts through, and then you run this through and it pulls it out. This does not work for the LS1. There aren't bolt holes in the harmonic balancer like a typical Generation 1 small block Chevy. Alright, so I had to run back to AutoZone. We got the right one this time. It's part number 27139. Freaking $80 to rent. It is the Chrysler one. So if they ask you if you have a Chrysler and you say no, don't worry. It is a claw design like this. You need this to grab onto the back of your harmonic balancer, and then you're just going to slide this bolt or this rod down in there, and then we're just going to tighten this bolt, and it's going to hit this, and it'll force this to pull out your harmonic balancer. Alright, just like that, it's off. Okay, here's my push rod. And this just slides right off like that. If you notice on these, they are keyless. So the harmonic balancer can slide on any way you would like. So that makes it really important to torque these on correctly. Alright, now we're going to pull off our timing cover. It's just 8 10mm bolts on the front, and then there are 10mm bolts. There's one on each side on the bottom. So I got the front 8 out. Now we're working on the bottom 2. Alright, so now that that's off, this front plate should pop right off. It has been on for a minute, so just might just need a little bit of persuasion. I did use some gray silicone at the bottom, so that's probably what's sealing it in. Alright, just like that, that came off. Alright, and then these gaskets are supposed to be reusable. It's got rubber O-rings all along the inside, and those look like they're all still good. Alright, so I'm not too sure how well you can see, but this is your oil pump right here. It just slides on your crank. There are some teeth that makes it slide on all the way. It's only held by 4 10mm bolts. There's 2 on each side, and then down at the bottom you do have your pickup tube. There is an O-ring on it. It slides onto that, and then it slides on and bolts on. So right now we don't have to take it off. If you're not replacing it, you can leave it on. Right now we're going to undo these 3 10mm bolts, and we're just going to take off the top timing set. Break all 3 loose first. Alright. And in case anybody's curious, I actually have a full pan of oil in here. I never drained it, so you don't have to. Alright. So those are our 3 timing gear bolts, and then it just slides right off. Now, let me just pull your chain off out from around it, and then if it falls down, don't worry. Crank's right there. It's not going to fall into the oil pan or anything. It's easily accessible. Alright. So this is your timing gear. It's all iron. It's not really something that's going to wear out, although you do want to inspect all of your teeth on it. All of mine look like they're in good shape. None of them are broken. None of them look like they're wearing unevenly. This is your camshaft. We do have to remove these 3 10mm bolts. This is our cam retaining plate. Now, if you were planning on changing your LS1 oil pump, you do have to drop your pan a little bit, because there is a pickup tube that actually screws into the oil pump, and yeah, you're going to need to get to that. But We're not doing that because this is brand new, so I'm not too worried about it. Now make sure you do not drop these into your oil pan. Alright, now this plate just slides right off. If you look on the back of it, you can see this orange ring. You do want to replace this plate because that orange ring used to be a gasket, and it does seal up these two holes right here. So include this in your things to purchase. Alright, the easiest way to pull your cam out now is to grab 2 of the bolts off of your water pump, and you're just going to thread these into your cam. This is going to help you get a grip on it and give you something to pull from. Just going in deep enough to where I feel like it's got a good grip on there and I'm not going to mess any of the threads up. Alright, now you want to grab it by these 2 bolts. You're going to grab it and you're going to twist up, almost like you're trying to lift the back of the cam at the very end up, because it does have to slide through some cam bearings, and you want to make sure you're holding the cam straight so it's not clinking down on each bearing. And you can do some twisting motion while you pull. Go. Alright, I'm going to stop here for a quick Instagram photo op. Alright. 3/4 of the way out. Be very gentle not to... Alright, she is out. Just like that. Alright, so we're going to swap over our water pump bolts into our new cam. As you can tell, you can see how worn out these old lobes are. I definitely think the motor had some pretty low oil pressure. When I pulled those valve covers for the first time, I was pretty blown away by how much gunk was in there. Whoever owned this motor previously, it was an absolutely terrible owner. They never changed their oil, it looks like. So it's not the best motor. You know, my SS Camaro has 112,000 miles on it, but you pull the valve covers, you can still see the aluminum. You don't have all this carbon buildup like you do on this motor. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and put these bolts in here, and then we're going to lube this down so we can put it back in. Alright, so this is our new cam. I got a bottle of some AC Delco assembly lube. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour this down. Just going to get everything all lubed up. Alright. And we'll just rub it all over and we're going to slide her back in. Sliding it back in as carefully as I can. I'm trying not to scratch any of the new lobes. Lifting up on the back end as you slide it in. further you get in, the harder it gets. Alrighty, and she is in. Woo! It's the next day. I stopped this video because I didn't have my cam retainer plate like I thought I did. Like I said, you got to replace those. So I was hoping today I could run to the dealership and pick one up. They do have one, but it's like $35 for the plate, and it's $20 online, so screw that. So I'm gonna have to wait a couple days for the retainer plate to get here. Alright, so if this was a brand new plate, to reinstall it, you would just put it right back over. Cam doesn't have to be in any particular position. So I'm only going to do two. I'm only doing 2 bolts right now, just because I am going to be pulling this plate off, and then we are going to be putting on a new one as soon as it gets here. With the cam, on your cam gear, you have, let's see if you can see it. I don't know if you can tell, but right here is a dot. Now on your crankshaft gear, down there at the bottom, there's a tooth with the dot as well. We have to match these up to where this dot is straight down and it's pointing straight at the tooth on the crankshaft with the same dot. Now what we should have did before we pulled this apart was crank the motor over until the 2 dots were lined up. That way the dot was already at the top, and then we just line it up. Since we didn't do that, now I'm gonna have to pull the chain on, put it back up. I'm gonna spin it to top dead center, and then that'll get the dot for the crank at the top, and then I'll undo my gear and re-put it back on. We're gonna put our cam gear back on. You do have this little dowel pin that sticks out of the cam. That does have to go in that little hole on the cam gear, and this makes sure that your cam can only go on one way. Okay. So now, got to find cam gear. Just gonna rotate the cam with my finger until the dowel pin is almost in the same spot. Alright, just to help you line up your chain with the cam, it can help to use your original water pump bolt, just to help you kind of get it lined up with the cam, and that way you can move the cam if necessary. Okay, let's see if the other bolt holes line up. Okay. Alright, so now that the timing gear is back on the camshaft, I'm going to spin the crankshaft. I'm going to do that by putting in the old bolt back in. Just tighten that down. And then as long as I turn this in the tightening position, the motor will turn over. Without the heads on, there's no compression. There's nothing to slow it down. It should be real easy to turn over. I'm going to continue to turn this over until I see that period, or the dot, on the bottom crankshaft at the very top, and I see cylinder 1. That's the cylinder driver's side closest to the front. I see that all the way at the top, because that'll be top dead center. turning the motor over right now. Very, very little effort. Alright, that looks like that's about the top. Cylinder 1 is now at top dead center. You can see there that the piston is all the way to the top, and then you can't see down in there just because the oil pump's kind of blocking it. But if it wasn't, down at the bottom crank down there, there is another dot on the tooth, and it's pointing straight up right now. So we are going to realign the top cam. We just got to rotate it probably a couple teeth. Nothing crazy. So right now our dot's right here, and it's got to go over 2. Alright, I finally got my dot lined up with the dot down there. It took a few more tries than I expected, but now that we know that the camshaft is rotating in proper ratio to the crankshaft, we can now check our piston and valve clearance. So you can kind of see all the grime and gunk that's along the cylinder edge. I just used a straight razor, and then we're just like this, we're just going to go around the entire head surface, and we're going to get rid of all of it. It comes up pretty easy, and then if it's flat enough to where it doesn't catch the razor blade, it's probably not going to be a problem. So we've got our deck surface all cleaned up, used a razor blade, used a rag with some brake cleaner, so now it's nice and clean, degreased. It's ready to mate with our head gasket. Alright guys, I think I'm going to end up calling it a day. I did want to get a lot more done today, but it's really cold out, and I don't know, it's my day off, and if I jump to this next step, it's going to make this video 20 minutes longer. So I'm going to go ahead and just call it here with the block being all cleaned. Tonight I'm going to pull my lifters out and let them soak in some oil. With LS1s it's recommended to soak them, but it's also recommended not to. So I haven't really gotten a solid answer. I would check with the lifter company on whoever makes your lifters. That's the best advice, honestly. So we're going to leave it here. We got the cam lined up. Next episode probably will drop before next Monday, just because I do want to get this thing going. Will be the head stud install, so we'll get those installed, and once the head studs are installed, then we can go ahead and tighten down our cylinder head. We're going to be using some like a putty of some sort up against the cylinder wall. We're going to turn the motor over a couple times and see how far the valves press into the Play-Doh. So that'll be a whole nother video on its own. I just want to appreciate you guys for watching. This was honestly, I'm sorry if it wasn't the most intriguing video, but that pretty much showed you how to pull out a cam, how to put a new one in. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, just drop them in the comments. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Anyways, I'll see you guys in a couple days.